Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang, and the Manggcast is back after a lengthy hiatus because of all sorts of bullshit. It has finally returned thanks to the generous donations on Patreon, so thanks to all those people. And here we are back with the Manggcast. Now it is going to be audio only, so I'm not going to throw in any video footage that nobody really cared about anyways. It's just going to be me and my dulcet tones telling you all about some game and movie news. Alright, I have more game news than movie news to talk about, but in general we have a bunch to discuss. So let's get into it, starting with some video game stuff. I'm going to talk about this in order from kind of least important to most important. So we're starting out with this, with a rumor, actually. We're starting out with a rumor. This rumor comes from Nikkei, I want to say it's pronounced. I have no idea, I'm not Japanese, but it's one of Japan's largest newspapers. And they claim that Nintendo's upcoming console, which has not really been announced, I guess it has been announced, sort of announced, not really announced, we don't know much about it. It's called the NX, which is a code name. I hope to God it's a code name. It's the NX, it's an upcoming console, maybe mobile, maybe, who knows? We don't know anything. But the rumor is, again, according to this newspaper, that the NX will be based around the Android operating system. Which is a hell of a thing to say. You know, if this was any Joe Schmo on Reddit, nobody would believe this. This is ridiculous. But Nikkei is a fairly large newspaper, and they've been mostly correct on past rumors about Nintendo and things like that. So there could be some credibility here, but let's talk about that. Android on a Nintendo console. I guess the question is why? Why would they all of a sudden switch to Android, which is a more or less mostly mobile operating system? There have been attempts to work it into kind of a console-esque situation, such as the Ouya. Remember that? Remember the Ouya? No, nobody remembers that. And so the claim from the newspaper, from the insider that they talked to, is that the Wii U, and basically, you know, every Nintendo system, has been kind of based on its own OS. You know, it's kind of its own software. And this makes it difficult for developers, especially in the Wii U's case. I mean, let's focus specifically on the Wii U because that's their most recent, you know, attempt at the console world. The Wii U is not doing well. I don't know if anyone will argue that. The Wii U is not doing well because it is a very unique system, as by design. And so developers have to work their games or ports or whatever around specifically the Wii U architecture. Whereas the Xbone, the PS4, PC, it's all kind of similar because it's all kind of based on PC architecture, you know. Whereas the Wii U just kind of does its own thing and it's in its own world to its own detriment. And so then the Wii U doesn't have a lot of, you know, installment in homes, so developers don't really want to go through, and it's kind of a vicious cycle, and so on and so forth. So I guess the idea then is that by using Android, or something kind of based around Android, something with the Android architecture, there's that already huge kind of installment basis. And so it's a lot easier then for developers to be like, okay, we know this we've worked with this, it's Android, okay, we get it. So I get that part. Okay, makes sense. The problem is that it's Android. Android has never really showcased any huge powerhouses of especially console gaming, because why would it? It's a mobile platform for the most part. And I would think really we just have to look to the Ouya for everything we need to know about this. I mean, the Ouya was designed as kind of a very open source console, basically. Just sitting connected to your TV, running on Android, and it could run everything that was on the Android platform already existing, but then also they wanted people to develop things specifically for the Ouya. And it just kind of faded away from existence. As far as I know, nobody ever talks about it. So I don't know enough or really anything about programming or game development or anything like that to say whether or not Android is capable of, hosting a real console experience akin to the Xbox One or PS4 or PC or anything like that, or even the Wii U. I just don't know. I have no idea. It just seems really strange for Nintendo to, if it is true, it seems like they want to kind of bring themselves back into the fold and be like, yes, we want to connect with as many people as possible, and so we want to use this existing, OS, this existing platform to kind of bridge the gap between, our software, our consoles, and the rest of the world. But also in that same vein, then, it's also like they're distancing themselves even more from the existing consoles. Because the existing consoles, the current generation now, exists on this kind of PC-based architecture, which is very... It's very, current. It's very, what do I want to say? It's, it's modern. It's ready to meet the standards that we expect as gamers from console gaming or from home gaming. And Android, I don't know if it's ready to meet those standards. It could be. Again, I can't say for sure. It just doesn't, nobody really thinks of Android like that. So this could all just be complete bullshit. This could all just be some random insider rumor that never pans out. We don't really know anything about the NX, so I can't really say. Again, the NX could be a mobile system, which would make this rumor make a lot more sense. But also, then it's just like, why would I buy this? Why would I buy a mobile gaming system that uses Android? I mean, yeah, it's probably gonna have buttons, but I don't know. Nintendo is just kind of living in their own world, in my opinion. I've lost a lot of faith in them over the years, so who's to say? That's why it's all just rumors. Let's move on to something much more concrete. On the PC platform, Steam announced, well, I guess Valve announced, Valve announced that Steam is finally going to have a refund system. So, it's already in effect. As of when you're hearing this, anybody that uses Steam will be able to get a full refund of any game for any reason, provided that it's been less than 2 weeks since the purchase of the game, and you've spent less than 2 hours playing. Which is a really interesting thing for, that's kind of the thing about digital systems, digital gaming, is they can track exactly how long you've played it, more or less. I mean, I think if you remove Steam and then you reinstall it, I think it still tracks how long you've played it. So that's interesting. Whereas if you go to GameStop or any physical retailer or Amazon or something like that, they have no idea how long you've played it. I played and beat Deadpool, and I returned it. And that was just, okay, there you go, here's all your money back. I basically rented it for free, or for $5, whatever. But Steam, okay, so this is good, but also kind of late. It's good that Steam finally is offering refunds, because without it, there's just some risk to it, you know. I mean, I guess the reasons for a refund, ideally the most common would be that it just doesn't work. But that's not really, like, I don't know how often that's come up. Like, I don't know if I've ever bought a game on Steam that didn't work on my system. It's possible, though. But I guess, like, my brother... But I don't know. Like, my brother bought Dead Space on PC. This was a while back. He bought Dead Space on Steam, and he fired it up, and the mouse controls, I believe, were just absolutely ridiculous. Like, completely wonky. Like, Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition mouse controls or something like that. And he just absolutely hated it. He spent like 20 minutes trying to get it to work better, and he just closed out and he never played it again. That was just it. Now, yeah, for most people, it's just like, all right, use your controller and quit being a dick. But my brother just does not do that. It's mouse, keyboard, or nothing. He's on PC, that's what he uses. So there, I guess there's a situation where you'd be like, I want a refund because this game promised proper mouse and keyboard controls, and it just doesn't really deliver. But I guess the point is, it's any game for any reason. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, you could just basically try a game for less than 2 hours, and there you go, get your money back. And really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people's reasons are. If they purchase the game, and regardless, if they're unsatisfied in less than 2 hours, they should be able to get their money back. So it's good that finally Valve is doing this, but it is pretty late to the party considering that Steam has been around for ages, and it's a digital platform. It's not like it's difficult to give refunds. You don't have to ship something out or anything like that. You just remove it from their library and give them their money back. It's really simple. So it's kind of crazy that it took this long, but I guess it's eventually is better than never. They also say that if it appears to us that you are abusing refunds, we may stop offering them to you. So they have the right to refuse refunds. But we do not consider it abuse to request a refund on a title that was purchased just before a sale and then immediately rebuying that title for the sale price. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. Like, if you have any really proper company, they should be able to work with you around sales and prices and things like that. Like, that's just kind of expected. Generally, I set Amazon as kind of the standard for online companies or whatever. So, yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, it's not really huge news that Steam does this. I don't know if I'll ever take advantage of getting a refund on Steam, just because, like, I'm not really that type of guy most of the time, especially for under 2 hours. Like, when I bought Deadpool, it was a really shit game, but I played it for like 6 hours. So, and generally on Steam, I never buy a game that's like more than $15. So, I mean, I guess I would have gotten a refund on Dex maybe, but I think I played it for more than 2 hours. So, I don't know. But there it is now. It exists. You can get refunds for any game for any reason. Alright, but let's talk about actual games finally. We have a couple announcements and one kind of leak. So let's talk about the first announcement. The first announcement is from 2K Games, and it's called XCOM 2. And it is coming out for PC, Mac, and Linux in November. A AAA title coming out for Linux in 2015. That's crazy. That's just crazy. Okay, so yes, XCOM 2. Let me read kind of the premise, the little blurb. In XCOM 2, the roles have been reversed, and XCOM is now the invading force. They are hampered by limited resources and must constantly evade the alien threat in their new mobile headquarters. Players must use a combination of firepower and stealth-like tactics to help XCOM recruit soldiers and build a resistance network, while attempting to expose the evil alien agenda and save humanity. XCOM 2 will introduce gameplay features such as procedurally generated levels, which will make each experience unique to the player, as well as offer a much deeper level of modding support. Additionally, XCOM 2 will offer a variety of new content, including 5 updated soldier classes, increased soldier customization, more alien and enemy types, involved tactical combat, and more. Yes, please. So this sounds very good. First of all, it seems like it's going to involve a much more type of guerrilla style combat. Like you're not on your home turf. You're on their home turf, and so I think it's going to be much more. I don't want to say desperate, because saving your own planet is pretty desperate, but it's going to be much more. You're going to have to be much more ingenious with how it plays through, especially with procedurally generated levels. That's really cool. Because after a while playing XCOM, the first game, you kind of got a feel for how every level went and how it played through. So procedurally generated, that's really nice. Modding support, deeper level of modding support. We're going to see all sorts of stuff happening with that. I'm excited about that. And then just all the new content that's going to come out. I think it's going to be very much the same type of gameplay. Why would they change that up? It works. It's not broke. Don't fix it. We're just going to get more and more and more of the goodness. So that'll be out in November. So not too far off. So the question then is, I have a question and an answer for you. The question is, why was this not announced at E3 in like 2 weeks? The answer is, because it is coming out for PC, Mac, and Linux. People that pay attention, well, I can't say people, I say a lot of people that pay attention to E3 don't really care about PC. Now, yes, I know the really hardcore people, they watch E3, but they're like, why is this not coming out for PC? This is bullshit. You know, that comes up so often. There are definitely hardcore PC gamers that pay attention to E3 and just get kind of pissed off. Because E3 is a very, and especially over the years, it's become very more, I don't want to say I don't want to use the word casual. I want to say console focused, you know. And I guess it's kind of always been. But it's about more of the console experiences and those types of games. That's why Microsoft has a conference and they mostly talk about Xbox. They don't talk about Windows. Sony doesn't ever talk about anything like that. Nintendo doesn't talk about anything like that. Like, the big conferences are all about consoles. So you have a PC, Mac, Linux exclusive game coming out. When would you ever talk about that at E3? It's just, there's no place for it. So you might as well just jump the gun and announce it right before E3. So that's the answer for why it's not announced at E3. The other question, I guess, which I don't really have an answer for, is why no console version? Or, I mean, XCOM even has like a tablet version, you know. Interesting question. 2015 coming out with a game a couple years ago that came out on all the consoles and PC and tablets. It came out on everything. And then coming out with a sequel to that game and moving to only computers. Kind of bold. I guess modding support could be a part of that, but I don't know if that's ever really enough of a reason. Perhaps they couldn't come to a concrete deal, perhaps, with Sony, with Microsoft, maybe. And that's not to say, and really, it's likely that it will come to consoles at some point, but as for the original announcement, it's computer only. That's fine for me, And I think that's fine for a lot of people, but it's also shitty for a lot of people. Because we are in a very much a console-focused world nowadays, even though some of us don't really like to admit it. Consoles are a pretty big thing, and so it's kind of like, it's kind of like Bloodborne coming out for PS4 only, and it's just like, well, what the hell, man? I have to buy this whole thing to play it, and, I like Dark Souls. I like Dark Souls 2. I played it on Xbox 360, and now what? I have to go exclusives? What? The whole exclusive concept is kind of annoying to certain groups of people, and so here rarely do you really experience that coming from, the PC world, but really PC exclusives are generally like strategy games, which technically XCOM is, but again, the first game was available everywhere. So it's odd, especially Mac and Linux. Like, they decided to go for a Linux version instead of a Xbox One version. That is very unique in today's world. So I don't know really what they're thinking. I can't imagine the Linux market is huge. Certainly not as big as the Xbox One or PS4 market. But it is what it is. I'm excited for the game either way. I'm sorry that console gamers will have to wait a while. That's about all I can say. Alright. Let's talk about a very, very interesting potential leak. And this leak comes from a YouTube channel called The Know. And the game in question is known as Dark Souls 3. So the Know posted a video showing off a bunch of screenshots and concept art and kind of blurbs. I don't know if that's the right word, but little snippets of info about the game. So there's a few questions I have about this that I want to discuss. I guess the first question is, will there be a Dark Souls 3 announced either in 2 weeks at E3 or at Tokyo Game Show or next E3 or ever? Will there ever be a Dark Souls 3 announced? And then the second question is, should there be a Dark Souls 3 announced? So will there? Yes. I would say yes. If I was a betting man, I would say there will be a Dark Souls 3 in our future. It's just kind of... I mean... It's about money, really, in the end. I mean, Bloodborne did very well, but it was a new franchise and it was an exclusive. So, it did well for what it was, but it won't do well compared to what Dark Souls 3 would do. Dark Souls 3 on Xbox One and PS4 with probably a PC version at some point would make a lot more money. I think that's just unarguable. So I think it really just comes down to money for FromSoft. Exclusives are nice, and Bloodborne would not exist if it were not for Sony's support and money. So I'm really wondering, like, it would be really interesting to know how profitable Bloodborne was for FromSoft. But again, Dark Souls 3 would have to be more profitable. Just, there's no argument there. It would just have to be. So, I mean, the Souls series, the Soulsborne series now at this point is FromSoft's really, that's their cash cow. I mean, they have other series, they have the Armored Core and things like that, but that's really never even come close to the heights of Soulsborne. So really, if they want to stay relevant, they need to keep putting out these games. And yes, they could work on Bloodborne 2. But I'm pretty sure that Dark Souls 3, if this is all true, has been worked on for at least the last year. Probably, well, I guess, Dark Souls 2 came out in March 2014? So yeah, probably at least the last year. And they're probably using some existing framework from Dark Souls 2. So, okay. And the game, the leak is that it's coming out probably in 2016. Again, most likely March, as that's when things tend to happen. So, potentially about a 2-year or so development time for a third sequel. I don't think that's ridiculous. I mean, look at what Ubisoft does. That's ridiculous. So, I think, yeah, definitely there will be a Dark Souls 3 at some point. Just so they have a current kind of game on all the platforms, you know. And then from then, you know, Bloodborne did well, and Bloodborne DLC will do pretty well. But Dark Souls 3 on Xbox, PS4, and PC with DLC and all that kind of stuff, yeah, that's big money for them. That's big money for them. So then the second question is, should there be a Dark Souls 3? Or, I guess, do I want a Dark Souls 3? No matter what, I'll play a Dark Souls 3, so I guess that answers part of it. I will play it, of course I will. Because it's just more Souls, you know, it's just the existing framework is so good that it's gonna be entertaining and relevant for a while. You know, it's so fresh and engaging that just put this stuff in new settings with new, you know, bosses, and it's like, okay, I enjoy it. But I guess kind of spinning off the question is, would I rather have Dark Souls 3 or, you know, I don't know, whatever, King Souls, or, you know, Angel Souls, or, you know, another type, another spin-off, sort of like akin to Bloodborne. And really, I guess, looking at kind of the transitions, Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1 are very similar games. They really are. Dark Souls 1 is, of course, better, in my opinion, for certain reasons akin to the plot and level design and things like that. You know, stuff that's kind of special to the development of the game, but the framework of the two is very similar. Whereas Dark Souls and Bloodborne are massively different. Demon Souls and Dark Souls are fairly different, but I don't think it's like Dark Souls is to Demon Souls as Bloodborne is to Dark Souls. You know, I think there's a smaller gap between Demon Souls and Dark Souls. So Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2, they're really kind of stand on their own. Like, they exist kind of side by side. It's not really like, I like Dark Souls, so I'm gonna like Bloodborne. You know, they're not mutually inclusive. You could like one or the other, I think, because they're pretty different in how they feel. I mean, yeah, it's, if you play Dark Souls, you are going to be familiar with a lot of concepts of Bloodborne. But the combat, really, especially, is so unique to Bloodborne that it's. I mean, everything is very quick and frenetic and dodgy in Bloodborne. Whereas in Dark Souls, you could sit there with your shield and really kind of pace it out and, you know, tank your way through encounters and things like that. You could be pretty quick and dodgy in Dark Souls, but nowhere near compared to Bloodborne. So I imagine Dark Souls 3 then would not be similar really to Bloodborne at all as far as the mechanics go. They would follow kind of this Dark Souls tree, this line where the combat is slower paced and, you know, it's not more thinky. It's definitely not more thinky, but you have the option of being more tanky. And so I guess I think most people agree. I guess I haven't really talked to that many people, but a lot of people agree that the combat in Bloodborne is the best that the series or whatever has ever been. And I know I said that. Because it feels so visceral, it feels so intense, and it's engaging, to a level that Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2 never really was able to reach. So, going from then Bloodborne back to the Souls style, and I mean, obviously I'm going to play Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2 again, but having a new game, going back to that style, it's just kind of like, maybe it's a step backwards, kind of. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Whereas, they could go to another spin-off that would be, have its own kind of style. But then it's like, if you're going to another spin-off, that defeats the purpose, because the purpose is money. And another spin-off is not going to make as much money as a sequel. So, I guess if it were up to me, and it's definitely not up to me, I guess I would say I'd like another spin-off. Because really, there's no purpose to having Dark Souls 3, aside from money. Because generally the idea of a sequel is you continue kind of the plot line and the mechanics and things like that. And as far as plotline goes, Dark Souls 2 really didn't answer any questions from Dark Souls 1, because it was set like completely far in the future, and everything was different. And yeah, there was certain little like mentions and little tidbits and cameo, things like that, but it was just like, it was a different story entirely. It was almost like a different Final Fantasy game is basically what it was. And as mechanics goes, yeah, I mean, obviously I really like Dark Souls. I like Soulsborne either way, but I like ingenuity. I'm not saying that Dark Souls 3 can't be ingenious. It can't bring in new elements that are interesting. But they're going to stick to that same kind of framework, because that's what people are going to expect. And so I would prefer a spin-off, because just look at Bloodborne. It spun off from the Dark Souls style. It made its own kind of statement, and it was fantastic. Yeah, there's issues with Bloodborne, and I still would say Dark Souls is the better game. But as far as combat goes, as far as mechanics go, Bloodborne tops it all. So I think they would have more room for creativity as far as mechanics in a spin-off, another one, than Dark Souls 3. Because I think they have to stick to a certain system with Dark Souls 3. But I'll play whatever they make, and I think Dark Souls 3 will come into existence. So that's that. As far as what the game, what the No actually says about the game, they say it's possible to create bonfires. The world can be altered in ways that change the bosses that you fight. And there's going to be certain, like, sword fighting arts that are going to be, like, special moves. So, yeah, I mean, that could be something interesting. Like I said, there's not, like, no room for creativity. That is something interesting. But we'll have to kind of see. And the video that they put out puts up a bunch of different screenshots and things like that. And the screenshots look pretty legit. They really do. There are definitely, you can see, even I can say, I'm not that hardcore of a fan. Like, I can see some reused assets. Like, I can see some textures and certain things that either look identical or very similar to stuff from Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, maybe even Demon Souls. Maybe updated. But those could either be replaced or, I mean, again, we're assuming this is all real, because if this is fake, if this is all just a big ruse, it's really, really committed to it. Like, there would be a hell of a lot of work to Photoshop and fake all of these screenshots. A ridiculous amount of work, and I don't think it'd really be worth it. Especially since people think that, there will be a Dark Souls 3 anyways. I guess the final question then is, why would they announce this at E3? Demon's Souls 1, I want to say, was announced at Tokyo Game Show. Dark Souls 1 was announced as Project Dark at Tokyo Game Show. Dark Souls 2 was announced at the Spike Game Awards. And Bloodborne was announced at E3, but only because it's a Sony exclusive and Sony has a conference there. So if they go back to then having a multi-platform, or at least Xbox One and PS4, where are they going to announce this at E3? You know? Dark Souls 3, if announced, is a huge announcement. It's a really big announcement. So it's possible that, you know, Microsoft poached them and be like, you know, here's a bunch of money, announce this at our conference. It wouldn't be the first time. I mean, that happens basically every year that some company does that. But yeah, I guess we'll see. They've never really... It would be kind of new for them to side with any given publisher or whatever company without being the special Bloodborne exclusive situation. I don't know why they wouldn't wait to Tokyo Game Show. That would make a lot more sense, but I guess the Soulsborne series in America has a lot of traction at this point, and E3 is pretty big for America, so... Yeah, but, I mean, FromSoft has always been a very Japanese company, so it seems strange that they would announce this at E3 instead of Tokyo Game Show, but, I mean, that's probably, like, the most strange thing about it. About this whole idea is that it'll be unveiled at E3, but it's not impossible, so I look forward to that. Alright, and then let's finally talk about the biggest announcement of the entire week, called Fallout 4. Yes, Fallout 4 was officially announced by Bethesda, coming out for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And they released a trailer along with it. Alright. Nobody should be surprised by this at all. I mean, everybody knew a Fallout 4 was coming. Like, why would it not? Why would it not? Okay, what do I really want to say about this? I mean, I'm not going to go into specifics of the trailer. I'm not going to break it down or really talk about it or anything like that. All I'm going to really say about it, all I'm really going to say about Fallout 4, is that I think more so than any other Bethesda game, this one is going to really have to wow me. It is really going to have to just do something different to really captivate me and interest me. I'm a huge fan of Fallout. Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Fallout 2. It's easily top 5 of all time for video games. I definitely also love Fallout 1, although it hasn't aged quite as well. And Fallout 3, I played through like 3 times straight through when I got it. Just beat it once, okay, beat it again, okay, beat it again, you know, just 3 times, done. Then Fallout New Vegas came out. And I think I beat it, I want to say, but after that I almost never touched it again. And I was a big fan of Morrowind. I played that a whole bunch, screwed around a whole bunch of that game. I didn't grasp it right away. I didn't really get it. But eventually it caught on. I was like, this is pretty funny. This is pretty entertaining. I screwed around a whole bunch in that game. Then I played Oblivion. And Oblivion was pretty entertaining. I played a lot of that game until I lost my save. And then I came back like a year or so later and I beat it. And entertaining game. And then Skyrim came out. And I think all of you remember that. I played Skyrim, and yes, because I played as part of a Let's Play, I think it lessened my opinion of it, but I'm not sure how many people really think Skyrim is like an incredible RPG. Because an incredible RPG and like an incredible open world RPG are two different things. And I'm not sure if I really even qualify Skyrim as an incredible open world RPG, especially compared to something like Witcher 3. But I guess that's not really fair. But what I'm getting at is that Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Oblivion, and Skyrim all feel very similar. And yes, obviously Fallout and Elder Scrolls are different as far as one's fantasy with swords and magic and one's post-apocalyptic with guns and explosives. Yes, I know. But it's just kind of the basic engine, I guess. It just feels similar. I mean, first person obviously lends a lot to that. But the dialogues and the inventories and the side quests and the whole kind of structure of all those games feels very similar. And frankly, I'm tired of it. I just am. I mean, New Vegas was like the biggest offender of that. And really, Skyrim, I don't know if I would have played it much at all if it wasn't for the Let's Play. It's just weary to me. It's just kind of done with. And so, I'm not sure how excited I can be for a Fallout 4. Now, yes, according to the trailer, the colors and the environments and the setting, it all looks a lot better than Fallout 3. And the idea of maybe doing some post-apocalyptic and some pre-apocalyptic, that's interesting. Having a dog companion maybe the whole time, that's interesting. And, you know, it all invokes a lot of memories of me of Fallout and Fallout 2 and stuff like that. And I really like all that. But if it's just going to be Fallout 3, but the 2015 version, I don't know if I'm excited about that at all. They are really going to have to just step it up. And honestly, I don't even know what I want. I don't know what I want from them for this game to be that would really excite me. It's tricky, because how do you make a sequel to Fallout 3 where it's still first person and it's still, you know, wandering the wasteland, getting guns, killing super mutants and death claws and things like that? How do you make a sequel to that game but also make it fresh and unique? But it's just like XCOM 1 or Enemy Unknown or whatever to XCOM 2. It's like, okay, I just want the same thing, but a lot more of it. You know. But this, I don't want Fallout 3, but a lot more of it. You know. I don't want that. And I can't really explain my feelings for that kind of difference between XCOM and its sequel and Fallout 3 and its sequel. But it's just, the Bethesda's whole framework and system is just tired. I don't know. Again, I can't really explain it. All I can tell you is that I'm cautiously interested. And I'm looking everywhere else across, you know, Reddit and things like that, and people are just like, oh god, Fallout 4 so amazing, can't pre-order yet, oh, you know, they're just going nuts over it, and it's just like, why? We haven't seen any gameplay. We have a cinematic trailer, and yes, the idea of Fallout 4 interests me, just like the idea of Dark Souls 3 interests me, because I'm a fan of the series. But I mean, I need to know more, and I need to know that there's going to be something unique here. I need to know it's not Fallout 3.5, the 2015 edition. That's really all I can say. The other question, I guess, is why was this not announced at E3? And this is a bit more perplexing to me compared to XCOM. XCOM I could kind of figure out. This one, though, I'm not so sure. I guess it could be something like where they couldn't maybe come to... Well, actually, here's the really interesting thing. If this was a few years ago or something like that, I could understand. Because they would have to announce this at, a conference, and they would have to either go to Microsoft or go to Sony and be like, okay, which one of you wants to pay us money to say that, to showcase our upcoming game at your conference instead of the other guys. There would be something like that. And showcasing Fallout 4 is going to be a big deal. It's going to be a really big deal because you can guarantee we're going to see some gameplay, or hopefully some gameplay at E3 during a conference and things like that. So it's going to be a big deal. So a few years ago, it'd be like, okay, maybe they couldn't figure out they couldn't come to a deal or come to an arrangement or something like that. So they're just like, screw it, screw both of you, we're announcing it ahead of E3. But this year is different. Because this year, Bethesda is finally having their own conference. Which is pretty crazy, really, when you think about it. Bethesda used to be just a little studio pumping out Daggerfall or things like that. And now they have an E3 conference, which I guess is becoming more common for certain publishers, to have E3 conferences. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Ubisoft didn't have one, or E3 didn't have one, or EA didn't have one. But Bethesda is having one now, probably mostly as a publisher and showcasing stuff like that. But also, there will be Fallout 4 at their conference. So why announce it ahead of time and take away some of the gravitas, I guess, to your E3 conference? I mean, if they would have ended their conference with Fallout 4 announcement and gameplay showcase, I mean, that's practically winning E3 right there, depending on how well they did it. I mean, that's huge. So why take that away from their E3 conference? Since you know that they're gonna spend a certain portion of their conference showcasing Fallout 4 regardless, I don't know what benefit it comes to announce it ahead of time. I don't know. I'm not in the business of anything of that, so I can't say for sure, but that's the most perplexing. Finally, the last thing I want to talk to you about Fallout 4 is about a year ago on the Fallout subreddit, a user known as Sandra Reed made a big post in which she claimed to be a former Bethesda Game Studios employee, and she worked on Fallout 4, and then she was fired for some reason, releasing confidential information about Fallout, but it was an accident. And so now she's angry, so she's going to just spill her guts on everything. And everybody at the time that read this just ridiculed her, insulted her, was like, this is complete bullshit. But now this post has come back into light because it's like, oh, look at this post she said about a year ago, and look at the things that she got right about it, and oh, this is all legit. It's probably not. Let's talk about the things that she did get right based on what we know now. 1, the game takes place in Boston. 2, you are going to play a protagonist who speaks. And 3, the game will be discussed in June of 2015. But she said that it would be revealed at E3 with a trailer only. So that's not really correct. The fact that it takes place in Boston was basically already known forever. We all kind of suspected that was true, so that's not a big claim. 2, the protagonist speaking was also kind of confirmed by leaked voice casting, information, something like that. We already knew that there was going to be probably a main character that spoke. And 3, the fact that it was going to be announced at E3 in 2015 is not a huge deal, because you basically just pick a year and pick an E3 and be like, oh, here it is. So she got those somewhat correct, but not really. The other things that she claims, and it's a big post, you can look it up, are kind of ridiculous. I mean, here's probably the most ridiculous thing. I'm not going to go into all of it because we don't really have a lot of time left. But the most ridiculous thing is Fallout 4 plays similar to Fallout 3 and New Vegas. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm worried about. You can play in third person or first person. Or, on the PC version, a new classic mode that will put the game into bird's eye view and play similar to the classic Fallout games. That is the most ridiculous thing of the entire post. Why? Why? Because Bethesda is not awesome enough to actually implement that. That's why. If that was implemented, that would wow me, and I would actually be excited and pre-order the game. That would do it. That would do it. But I have no faith that they would ever do anything like that, so the whole post is bullshit. And everybody else is saying that it's all bullshit. Like, when it was first uncovered, people were like, oh, look at all this, it's so real. But now, after doing more thinking and research and all that, it's just like, no, it's really not. But it's a good attempt, I guess. It's a good attempt either way. Also, the fact that no employee known as Sandra Reed has ever been identified as working for Bethesda. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm cautiously interested in Fallout 4, for those that were curious. Alright, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but let's quickly talk about some movie stuff. First of all, is kind of a whirlwind of a Marvel Netflix news involving Jason Statham. The first news was that Jason Statham was rumored, or leaked, or whatever, to be playing Bullseye in Season 2 of Daredevil on Netflix. And if you haven't watched Season 1 of Daredevil on Netflix, please do so. It's fantastic. So the rumor that was not officially confirmed was that for Season 2, which is beginning filming later this year, Jason Statham would play Bullseye, which is a long-running major nemesis of Daredevil. And this is kind of big news because Jason Statham is a pretty big star to go on just a Netflix show. But Daredevil on Netflix is like its most watched thing ever. So, okay, it's a pretty big deal. So this would bring a lot of, Hollywood emphasis, a lot of Hollywood power to kind of, Netflix, I mean, yeah, it has House of Cards with Kevin Spacey and has other shows like that, but this would just kind of be another step of that. That Netflix it's a serious player in the business. So that's pretty crazy, but it wasn't officially confirmed. And unfortunately now, it seems that deal is over. That the negotiations are off, it's done, it's not happening. And, so that was kind of quick. Like, we really don't know much about Daredevil Season 2 at all. We don't even know if Bullseye will really be in it now. I mean, according to the rumor, obviously, that he was, because Jason Statham was going to be playing it, so maybe that's still, probably Bullseye will be in it. But if they... Now, whoever is Bullseye has to be like, well, we had Jason Statham, but now we have you. So it's kind of interesting. The rumor is that they're blaming the actual leak about the rumor as for why negotiations kind of crumbled between Jason Statham and Marvel. But also Jason Statham slammed Marvel recently for saying that basically Marvel's action scenes are all CGI and stunt doubles and bullshit, and they're not real. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's nice. I mean, I would love to see Jason Statham make Avengers 2 without CGI, because it would probably be shit. I mean, we go back to, like, the old Flash show or Hulk or, something like the Incredible Hulk, things like that. Like, just CGI is good. It has uses. And it's especially funny because Daredevil mostly relies on practical effects, which is a lot of why it's so awesome, actually. Because the fighting scenes are very kind of akin to almost a martial arts movie, and it's you feel it's all of its kind of effects during the fights, which seems right up Jason Statham's alley. So I don't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened, why it crumbled apart. But yeah, there you have it. So I think it would have been a cool bullseye, but either way, I trust that they'll work it out. Whereas Daredevil Season 2 will be pretty badass either way. All right, in much different news for our final topic. Dwayne Johnson is going to star in the remake of Big Trouble in Little China. And this is interesting. Well, it's interesting for many reasons, but it's interesting because Dwayne Johnson is apparently a big fan of the original movie, and he actually is the one that got kind of the ball rolling on all this. He's going to be a producer on the project, and he kind of pushed this all forward. He's like, I want to produce this, I want to star in it, I want to make it happen. And you would think that being a big fan of the movie, the original movie, you would realize that A, it doesn't really need to be remade because it still stands the test of time, and B, unfortunately, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as much as I love the man, is probably not the best choice if they do remake it, to play Jack Burton. And if you haven't seen the original movie, I mean, right after this podcast is done, go watch it. You owe it to yourself. You really do. It's incredible. But Jack Burton, played by Kurt Russell, if you don't know, he was played by Kurt Russell in the original movie, 1986. He played a truck driver known as Jack Burton, who basically got into a lot of strange shit in Chinatown. And his character was brilliant, really brilliant, because, and I think the best way to sum it up, is that he was a sidekick who thought he was the main character. Like, that's basically it. He was kind of like a Robin who thought he was the Batman, you know, more or less. He acted as if he had kind of all the screen presence and the badass one-liners, and he was always going to save the day and things like that, but it never really worked out that way. So it's an immortal role, you know. It's a role that you'll never forget. It's like Jack Burton, you know, it's incredible. Dwayne Johnson, again, as much as I love the guy, could never do that. He could never play a sidekick pretending to be a main character, because the man is a goddamn mountain. And he's always going to look like the main character, and he's going to be the main character, and so they're going to get the feel entirely wrong. It's just really the best choice from the current stock of actors. The best choice, in my opinion, would be Chris Pratt, but he's going to be my choice for a lot of remakes and new roles and things like that, because he's really entertaining to watch, and I think he fits it. I mean, when you look at Chris Pratt compared to The Rock, without knowing anything about the movie, you know that those two are completely different. The Rock and Chris Pratt are just completely different actors. They're both charismatic and entertaining to watch, but almost for completely different reasons, you know. And Jack Burton, I think, fits into a Chris Pratt mold much better than The Rock. So then, I guess the big point is why, well, not even why, but who really wants a Big Trouble in Little China remake? I mean, it's one of those movies that the fans of the original movie are so die-hard, you know, it's such a cult classic, that who's really interested in a remake of this? Who is this for? I have no idea. I mean, I guess it's for people that have heard the name Big Trouble in Little China, and they see Dwayne Johnson's on it, and they're like, oh, we'll go see it. You know, that's basically who it's for. Of course, I'll go see it. I see whatever. But it just seems like a very strange choice. I mean, really, the day that I die is when Die Hard gets remade. But even that, I can see more of a reason to remake that than Big Trouble in Little China. You know, it's just strange. It's just really strange. So I'm sure we'll see more news about that. I mean, this doesn't have a director. I don't even know if... I think they're currently working on the script. So I imagine it'll happen at some point, especially if Dwayne is really, you know, hardcore on getting this made. But it's going to be weird. And Big Trouble in Little China is weird, but it's weird in an awesome way. This is going to be weird in just a disappointing way. Yeah, so not much to say about that. I mean, remakes in general, and I don't know who I was probably talking to my mom or something like that about remakes and things like that. And she said that, Hollywood is they're just so out of ideas. They're not. Hollywood is not out of ideas. We'll never be really out of ideas. I mean, maybe in the year 3000 or something, it's going to be tough to come up with something really original. But at this point, we could still come up with a lot of original stuff. It's not about ideas. It's about money. It always is. And a remake, a sequel, a reboot, whatever, if it has a name on it that people have heard of, it instantly has more recognition and appeal than something fresh. And that's unfortunate for, a lot of reasons. But that's just the nature of it. That's just how it is. Star Wars 7, Star Wars carries a lot more, just name recognition. People have heard of it. People are interested right off of that. Whereas compared to something like Ex Machina, it's like, I don't know what that is. It looks strange. I've never heard of it. It's got robot and whatever. Star Wars, yes, Star Wars! It's just, that's how it is. It has nothing to do with ideas. It has to do with money. And so, a lot of people complain about remakes and reboots and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, they're remaking my favorite movie. It's such bullshit. It's really not. Feel free to chime in. But I've never encountered a remake or a reboot or a sequel that has really invalidated the previous movie or the original movie. Especially if you don't ever see it. It's a worse for sequels. I think sequels are a bigger offender. Say, if you really love The Matrix and you watch the other two Matrix movies, that may have affected your opinion of the original Matrix, but hopefully not, because the original Matrix is still really good. Or like my most recent example is Paranormal Activity. The marked ones or whatever implemented some big plot thing with the original film, and I was like, that's ridiculously bullshit. I refuse to accept it. But remakes and reboots, like, they rebooted The Evil Dead. And I thought it was a goddamn travesty. That doesn't affect my opinion of the original movie. In fact, that just makes me appreciate the original movie even more. That it's like, yes, you can't redo this. This is timeless classic. This can never be redone. It's incredible. Or all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes and reboots, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all that. It's just none of these compare to the originals because the originals are just so good. So in my opinion, these crappy remakes, reboots just make people appreciate the originals even more, or bring attention back to the originals. There might be people, I can guarantee there's going to be at least one person that is going to hear about or see the new Big Trouble in Little China movie, and they'll hear that it's a remake or a reboot, and they'll be like, maybe I should check out the original. And then, boom, that's now my favorite movie. Just things like that. People say that remakes and reboots take away from the originals, or they take away attention, or something like that. Whereas, young people, they'll type in Big Trouble in Little China because they heard about they heard it mentioned. And they'll see it's like, oh, there's the 86 version or there's the new 2015 version. And we're like, why would I want to watch this old one when I can just watch the new one? And maybe they'll just watch the new one and they're like, oh, that sucks. And they'll never do anything about it. I would say that likely these people would have never watched the original no matter what. And really, it's kind of like, it's just, how do I want to put it? It's what we give attention to, you know. It's we as people on the internet, around, you know, talking, whatever. It's what we give attention to that really stands the test of time. Look at The Thing. Okay, look at The Thing. The Thing is a great example. The original Thing came out in like the 50s or the 60s or something, like ages ago. Nobody ever talks about it. The remake, sequel, or whatever, 2004 to 2013, whatever, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, nobody ever talks about it. It's terrible. The classic, The Thing with Kurt Russell from the 80s, always talked about. It's one of my top 10 horror movies of all time because it's incredible, and I'll always talk about it. But I'll never talk about the original from the 50s or the sequel, reboot, whatever, from the 2000 whatevers. And that's kind of how it is. Things that are really good that people talk about will stand the test of time. Crappy remakes, reboots, whatever, sequels will not. And so people have said, why are they remaking this? Why are they rebooting this? Whatever. Sometimes remakes, reboots are good. And again, I'll point you back to The Thing. The one with Kurt Russell was like a remake. It was. And there are other examples of remakes that are better. And the ones that are not, it doesn't cost you really anything. It doesn't hurt your soul. It might a little bit, especially if it's The Evil Dead. But it fades away from existence and is just a part of time passing. The ones that stand the test of time, those are the ones you'll watch again. Those are the ones you'll tell other people, your children, whatever. Those are the ones that you'll remember. So that's my final opinion on remakes and reboots. If you disagree with me or agree with me, let me know. I'd like to hear what other people think. I know it's very popular nowadays to just rip remakes and reboots to shreds, but time will do that for us. Trust me. All right, so that wraps up the reboot of the Manggcast, as it were. We ran a little bit over an hour. I really don't want to do that, but I had a lot of game news I really want to talk about, especially, Fallout 4. How could I not talk about that for a while? I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, because that's what people really pay attention to. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be just shooting the shit about games and movies, what I enjoy talking about. If you made it all the way through this, I appreciate it. That lets me know that you care for the Manggcast. You want more of it. But leave me comments, leave me likes, let me know, give me your feedback. Let your words spread. I don't know where I'm going with that sentence. Never mind. I just start saying things. Anyways, I gotta stop talking. I think I'm high. Anyways, my name is Mang. This has been the Manggcast, and I'll see you fine folks next time.